everyone. We're about to watch a case of a crime that was committed in 1983. He was initially given the death penalty. It was then rescinded on appeal for a life sentence, and now he has the opportunity for a commutation of his sentence and an opportunity at parole. With that, let's jump in.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Floyd. Would you introduce yourself, sir? Tell us your name and your DOC number. The microphone's still on mute. Okay, let's start over. Can you tell us your name and DOC number, please?
Tommy Floyd, 326-105.
All right. You are represented by counsel who's here with us in Baton Rouge. So would you enter your name into the record?
Frank Tommy Floyd.
You have some folks who will be speaking on your behalf. We have Kerry Myers with the Parole Project. We have Norris Henderson with the First 72 Plus. Also here in support, but not speaking, Everett Offray, Terrence Guy, and Sophie Cole. We also have in opposition, representing the victim, we have Mr. Gary Gray, who will be speaking, Pat Rideout, and Michael Gray, who are also here but will not be speaking. First, I'll read some identifying information into the record, ask you to confirm it. Then we'll conduct a parole interview with you. We'll hear from the folks at the penitentiary, and then we'll hear from all the folks that have indicated they'll be speaking today. Before we turn it over to your attorney, we'll ask you if you have any remarks, and then we'll let Mr. Ferrara close it out for us. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Floyd, as mentioned, your DOC number is 326105. You're here this afternoon seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in Iberville Parish, July 1997, to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction. Is that information correct, Mr. Floyd?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, your case this afternoon has been assigned to Mr. Freeman, seated to my far right. Would you answer his questions?
Okay, excuse me. Mr. Floyd, how old are you?
48.
Okay, and how long been in prison on this charge?
28 years.
So you were 20 when you committed this?
19.
Okay. What's your educational level?
I quit school in the 10th grade, and since I've been here, I've gotten my GED.
Okay, Mr. Floyd, and we've read the report. I want you to tell us what happened when this was planned. And I want you to start from when y'all cashed y'all checks at Hubbard.
Day we cashed our checks, Mr. Dwayne wanted to know if he could have a spot where he could go and shoot his gun. So we told him yes, sir. And we went to a little bar and we did a lot of drinking and got loaded on drugs and stuff. And then we went behind the levee and we were planning on robbing him and taking his money and his drugs that he had, and wound up robbing him of his life. And then I got scared and we hid the body.
At what time y'all decided y'all were robbing?
Just through the course of the day. I mean, we had no set time. It just the way it played out at that time.
Didn't y'all buy the shovel in Port Allen?
Yes, sir.
So y'all known then that y'all were planning on robbing and killing.
Yes, sir.
You said y'all were on drugs and alcohol. How long have you used drugs?
Off and on for Probably since I've been about 16.
What was your drug of choice?
Marijuana and cocaine back then.
But, what if any treatment have you received?
Sir,
What if any treatment have you received?
I've been through the AA 12-step program, NA, and
Any other classes?
I've taken a lot of speak-up classes. The juvenile young adult program at the Dale Carnegie Club. The AA group, went through the hospice program.
Have you taken any victim classes or?
Yes, sir,
Hey.
I take victims awareness, anger management, the 100-hour program, thinking for a change.
Tell me what you learned from, victim awareness.
Yeah, whenever you make a spur of the moment decision that you don't only affect yourself and the victim's family, you affect yourself and the community, your family. That you should always stop and think before you make a decision at the spur of the moment.
What you learned from anger management.
Anger management, teach you to recognize your triggers and how to deal with the situation before you act on anything.
What were your triggers?
Acting off of impulses.
You consider yourself a drug addict?
At that time, yes, sir, but not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, what about alcoholic?
Sir,
What about alcoholic?
at that time, yes, sir.
What made you stop being an addict?
Personal change on the inside, and then the help that I got here and the tools that I've learned made me want to be a better person.
If you got out, would you do any kind of meetings or anything like that?
I would like to continue it and find a little group around my house. And I have a guy a pastor of a church in Baton Rouge. I was going to ask him if he would be my sponsor and hold me accountable for every one of my actions.
Yeah. Because I mean, I have the judge sitting next to me that was over drug court for 15 years. And then once you're an addict, you're always an addict. You go away for a while, but pressure gets back to you. You're gonna still be an addict. And what did y'all do after y'all killed Mr. Dwayne?
We hid the body and then we left that area and went back to the bar and just got drunk and did more drugs and tried to forget about it.
You have a strong opposition from the DA and the sheriff. You have your aunt and your brother and your mother all unopposed. You have plenty victim opposition from all of his family. Tell me a little bit about your medical history. I see you've had some problems.
Yes, sir.
What stage are they in?
I haven't had a issue with cancer since about 2004. I had it 3 times, and it got pretty rough. And ever since I've been cured of that, it's been all right. And about 7 years ago, I got diagnosed with leprosy and histoplasmosis. And I got cured of the leprosy. I'm down to 1 pill a week. They weaned me off of that medicine, and the histoplasmosis is just down to 2 pills a week at a time on it.
I see you're a hospice education volunteer. What does that entail?
When I got sick the first time, I was a hospice patient. And after I seen how the guys treated you with the love and the respect, that they teach you and the people want to treat you with there in the program, I told them if I ever got better, I'd like to be a volunteer. So after I got out the hospital the first time, my cancer went in remission. I signed up for the hospice class and I got chosen. So I took all the training and everything because I wanted to give back to that program. It meant a lot to me. And I figured I could help a lot of people that was going through the same thing that I went through. And I stayed a hospice volunteer for about 8 years.
I see that you have a low risk. You've had 7 write-ups. I think the last was in May of 18. An aggravated disobedience.
Yes.
What was that?
I got called to the hospital in the middle of a count, and I had a confusion of whose count I was on. And at that time that she hollered count, I thought I was on a count, so I didn't line up for count until the recount. And then for recount, I told her I was the one that messed it up because I never checked in with her for the original count.
Tell me, why should I take a chance on you?
I feel like I've been a changed person, and I feel like I can go back into society and be productive. And I'd like to volunteer and try to help other people that try to keep them from making the same mistakes that I've made before I came here.
If you could talk to the victim's family, what would you tell them?
That I take full responsibility for what happened that day. That no amount of words or can bring back what would happen that day. And if I could, I would change. And one day, I hopefully that you'll have forgiveness in your heart for me.
Mr. Marabella has questions.
Mr. Floyd, I want to talk to you a little bit about your drugs and alcohol. When did you first start using drugs?
About 14, 15 years old.
When did you start using about that age?
Just drinking after school and stuff, or at one weekends at friends' house.
Okay. What were you drinking? Beer, whiskey, what?
Whatever we could get our hands on, sir.
What about the drugs? 14, were you smoking marijuana?
Yes, sir.
What did you progress to after marijuana?
It led to the cocaine.
And when did you start using cocaine?
Probably about the age of 16.
Powder, crack, what? What kind of
Powder.
cocaine did you use?
Powder form.
And how long did you continue to use cocaine?
Couple years.
And how often were you using it?
Maybe 2, 3 times a week.
How about drinking? How often were you drinking?
Pretty much every day.
Now, what were you doing the night this happened? What were you? You said you were drinking intoxicated. Were you doing drugs also?
Yes, sir.
What kind of drugs were you doing?
Marijuana and cocaine.
And so up until that particular incident, how often were you doing cocaine?
Still about 2 or 3 times a week.
So from the time you were like 16 to the time of this offense, you were doing it 2 or 3 times a week?
Yes, sir. My drug of choice back then was the marijuana.
Okay. Have you had any long-term, have you ever had treatment on the outside?
No, sir.
Have you had any long-term treatment while you've been in prison? Been to Steve Hoyle, Blue Walters, anything like that?
No, sir.
You say you're not an addict anymore. You were an addict, but you're not. You were an alcoholic, you're not. Tell me what you mean by that.
Before anybody can get help, I think they have to make a change on the inside. And I've changed on the inside, and I took the classes that helped me recognize that I was an addict back then and that I was in denial and everything. And I've had choices or chances since I've been here to do the drugs, and I've chosen not to do them.
Do you think drugs are a choice?
Yes, sir.
You don't think it's a disease? You tell me you're not an alcoholic or a drug addict anymore, so it's just a choice. You think maybe you're strong enough to go out there and resist any kind of drugs?
Yes, sir. I think I should stay away from.
And so you don't think you would need long-term drug treatment or something like that, like an inpatient drug treatment? You think you're beyond that, you don't need that?
Yes, sir, but I am willing to take them.
Well, I understand you're willing to do whatever you need to do to get out. My question to you is, you don't think you need it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you don't think, right?
No, I probably do need to take the classes, sir.
Well, you keep talking about classes. Education is one thing, treatment is another. Do you believe you need long-term drug inpatient treatment? Yes or no?
No, sir.
As you said, okay,
No, sir.
thank you. All right. That's all.
Mr. Wisher?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Floyd. How are you?
Good, sir.
For me to vote for you, I gotta understand a little bit more about what you did. So, Chad, Dwayne and yourself drove down from Natchez, Mississippi to pick up a federal check, right?
Yes, sir.
You were working in Port Allen?
We was working in Mississippi at the time, and Port Allen was just a stop on our way home.
Okay, so where was home?
Every Parish down around Bayou Pigeon.
Okay, so you were working in Natchez and stopped at Hubbard's on the way home to cash some checks at Hubbard's supermarket. When did you and your co-defendant decide that you were going to rob and murder Dwayne?
A couple days before that.
So basically, even before you set out from Natchez, he hatched a plan to murder Chad. Okay, so what did Chad do to make him worthy of
AT&T Wi-Fi.
someone murdering him?
I really didn't understand.
She didn't, you cutting out. Can you repeat the question?
What did Dwayne do to make him worthy of you and Chad killing?
Nothing, sir. He didn't do anything wrong except have money and drugs at the time. And we took his life for that, sir.
For a paycheck and some drugs.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Jackson.
How long had you known Mr. Gray?
Maybe about 2 weeks.
And you all worked together on the same crew?
Yes, ma'am.
And the plan was hatched to rob and kill him a couple of days before you actually robbed and killed him, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Trying to understand that, this homicides take a lot of different forms. Usually it's strangers killing other strangers, or maybe, it's a heated argument between people who are acquainted with each other. But I'm trying to understand the mindset of someone who go to work with somebody, ride around with him in a vehicle, and knowing all the while that you were planning to murder them. I'm trying to understand the mindset of what do you think mindset is of a person who would do that to somebody that they knew, and they weren't in an argument, that no one had done anything to you. Why do you think you were capable of such a cold-hearted kind of act against somebody that you knew?
I was just a young, dumb kid back then, ma'am. I did a lot of growing and a lot of personal change.
But let's go back, because, there are a lot of young, dumb kids out there. We've all been young, dumb kids, but it doesn't come into our thinking that, oh, I know this guy, I've been hanging out with him, so let's go ahead and kill him and take his money. That's a little bit more than just being a young, dumb kid. Would you agree with that?
No, ma'am.
So this is all you're being a young, dumb kid?
Yeah, I was a young, dumb kid, and I didn't think about anything. The only thing we worried about was just getting loaded and drinking, and that was it.
All right, thank you.
Warden Hooper, we'd like to hear from you.
Yes, ma'am. Tommy Ford's been around me since I got here. He's taken AA group back in the early 2000s before he even had an opportunity to even think about going on parole. He has numerous certificates where he does have a problem, and he continues to get help through classes here. So to answer the judge's question, he is still getting help here. He will need help for the rest of his life. I think in his mind, he has an opportunity to get drugs while in prison. He chooses not to. So he has the willpower to stay away from them as long as he's in prison. But once he gets out, he will need help. And I think he's confused by the questions. He's very nervous right now. I mean, he's shaking. But long before we even talked about him going up on parole or getting the clemency, he's got the certificates way back in 2000. So, and he continues to go to the AA support groups in prison.
Tommy, what's your job?
I work at the ranch house as an orderly, ma'am.
You work in the kitchen?
No, ma'am, out in the yard orderly.
Okay, all right. And how long have you had that job?
Almost a year now.
I was pleased to hear you say earlier to Mr. Freeman, you said I went through hospice. But I do see in the records you were a hospice volunteer, so I'm glad you clarified that you were actually a hospice patient.
Yes, ma'am.
And then became a hospice volunteer. That speaks volumes. I have to apologize. I did not recognize your guest that you had there with you. And we have two of them that want to speak. There with you, you have your Janie Canino, your mother, Lorraine Aurelian, and Diane Ernst. And so at this time, I'd like to hear from, first of all, your mother, Miss Lorraine. Could we hear from you, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Lorraine Aurelian, and I am Tommy Floyd's mother. A lot of the things he had said, I was gonna say myself, but, so I'm just gonna say what I feel. Back in 1994, Tommy did commit a crime that forever changed his life, the victim's family life, and my life. I hope that the victim's family can find in their heart one day to forgive my son. Tommy takes full responsibility for what he did. Back then, he was 19 years old, and I have seen him change from a 19-year-old to a 48-year-old man. He has done a lot of self-help classes, which was just discussed and all. And Tommy, during the time that he's been incarcerated 28 years, he's had cancer 3 times. He said that, and it's only by the grace of God and prayers, because how many times can people beat cancer? Sometimes you're lucky if it's one. He beat it 3 times, so there's a reason for that. I feel God has a purpose for Tommy's life. He's a very hard worker. He respects the prison personnel, inmates. He does anything anybody asks him. If he can help inmates, he does that too. Tommy's a very likable fella. He's easy to get along with and all. And Tommy had a job before he went to prison, and I believe my son can be a productive citizen again if he has a chance of getting out. We have myself, family members, and friends that are willing to help Tommy any way possible to re-enter into society. His brother has offered him a job and a place to stay when he gets out, and anything else that Tommy needs, we will be willing to help him at all. But I've seen Tommy grow and change from a 19-year-old to an older adult. He takes, like I said, full responsibility, and he has told me many times how remorseful he is for what he has done. And Tommy took all the classes for the hospice volunteer. I remember he was telling me about that, and I said, I think you make a good one, because who else would be better than somebody that went through these things? You know what I'm saying? He's been through it. He could help the guys. He could give them support and all. And his motto that he always told them, never, never give up. As long as you got breath in your body, you always got a chance. So I just like to say, if the parole board could grant Tommy Clemenson, it would be greatly appreciated. And I thank y'all all for listening to me. Y'all have a blessed day.
Ma'am, thank you so much. We have Miss Canino, like to speak also.
Hi, I'm Janie Canino. I've been knowing Tommy for over 20 years. And in that time, I have seen him grow maturely and become a productive person, even in prison. He's very likable, and he just is very caring. And I don't know of another person that would beat cancer and then volunteer to be a hospice person to cater to them, because he does have such a giving and loving heart. And he has been through his family. He's been so remorseful because he knows that he not only hurt his mother most of all, but his family as well as his friends, and then also remorseful for the person that he killed. And he wished he could take that all back. We all have had a day in our lives that we wish that we could take back. And even though we can't take that back, and he can't take that back, he is remorseful and is trying to do his best to change what he has done and be a more productive person. I live in Texas, and I personally told him I would welcome him in Texas and try to support him with anything that he wanted to do. And my family and I are just willing to do that. And I told him he could come and stay with me in Texas, even though he wants to stay in Louisiana to be closer to his mother. And in closing, I want to say that Tommy has been very remorseful. He's changed so much since 19 years old. Now he's 48 years old. I ask you and I beg you to please give him his clemency, to let him be a productive person on the outside, a taxpayer, and not a burden to the state of Louisiana. Thank you so much for hearing me, and God bless.
Thank you so much. Mr. Henderson, I'd like to hear from you.
Good afternoon. My name is Norris Hanson, and I met Tommy when Tommy was a patient. Tommy was my patient. I took care of Tommy. And when I see Tommy, if you have any questions about faith, Tommy situation kind of like just manifests that there's something, some power bigger than all of us. When I saw a 20-year-old kid lying in the bed with the prognosis that his illness was terminal, I was like, man, God is cruel. Then to see Tommy not only fight back from the illness, but become one of us, become one of the hospice volunteers. And like I say all the time about anybody who's a hospice volunteer, that hospice is a calling, it's not a job. And when I see Tommy now, and I look at his face and hear all the questions that's being asked, and I think Warden Hooper said, when he said Tommy was nervous, Tommy is not nervous. Tommy is scared. I've never seen this kind of fear in Tommy's face, even when he was dying. I mean, he accepted that fate of him knowing that I may die, but I might not make it, man, you know? And for him to kind of like sustain that, he know in this moment that I have to be held accountable for all of this. And he said he's accountable for all of it. And I know the question about young uneducated people make uneducated choices. This was kind of like premeditated, just based upon the facts I've heard. But I know Tommy as a person, and I've seen Tommy go through so much in his life. And the fact that I'm just here today to be able to speak on behalf of Tommy of something that I thought would never, ever occur, that Tommy would still be around 20 years later. Just based on the fact that, and like his mom said, you know, God is using Tommy. If it's no more than to demonstrate to us about God's control of everything, or to help Tommy reconcile with himself, to kind of like see him giving back to other people, because he got up out of that bed. And when he went through that training, Tommy was at the side of other people's bed who was co-patients with him. And so I said something about Tommy, a whole lot about Tommy, not the young kid who actually walked into the prison and didn't have a clue. So I would just pray that, all of us take a message from Tommy's experience and use it in whichever way that God has kind of like blessed us to be a part of Tommy's life and for Tommy to be a part of ours. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I do have Mr. Myers with the Parole Project. Is there a brief statement from the Parole Project?
Yes, good afternoon. We're certainly willing and ready to take Mr. Floyd as a client. He already is a client of Parole Project. What I think you see here is the 19-year-old Tommy Floyd was a person who wanted no more in his life than to get high and did whatever it took to do that. A selfish person who everything was consumed by that. I want to remind the board that this is a clemency hearing. As you well know, I don't really need to remind you that Mr. Floyd would have a lot of time to be involved in additional programs. Also, should Mr. Floyd be released, first thing he would have in that Parole Project is he would have a substance abuse evaluation, and we would ensure that he followed any recommendations of that substance abuse evaluation, including outpatient treatment. So we are prepared not only to offer our program, our services, but this Tommy Floyd that you see, only someone who's come as close to his own mortality can understand his own actions, and someone who can turn around and watch other people as they pass can know the value of life like Tommy. And I think that lesson has been well learned. So based on everything, I would just ask that this board would grant Tommy's recommendation today.
Thank you. We have, we'll hear from the victim's family now. We have Mr. Gary Gray.
Hey, good afternoon. First, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Dwayne's large extended family, participating either by Zoom or YouTube from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. We are here to be a voice for Dwayne since he is no longer with us. As you already know, on August 5th, 1994, all of our lives were changed forever when Dwayne, only 23 years old, was taken from our family and when his life was just beginning. We will never know Dwayne's wife, children, or eventually grandchildren, and Dwayne will never know his nieces and nephews. Dwayne will never get to take pictures with his entire family again. The family was robbed of this by Tommy Floyd and his accomplice. We will never be able to celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, family reunions, or even funerals with him again. Dwayne would have been 52 years old this coming June, and we have now spent more time without him than we got to spend with him on this earth. We think about Dwayne every day and can only wonder what life would be like if he were here with us and we will always be a voice for Dwayne. Based on a handwritten note by Tommy Floyd to the law enforcement officers, the crime was committed, the crime that was committed was a planned attack and ambush on Dwayne's life. Both offenders had many of opportunities to walk away and not commit this murder. From the time they stopped at the bank to cash their checks, to Walmart to purchase the ammo, or even to the bar to shoot pool and drink beer. The other thing is, all they had to do was tell Dwayne they wanted his money, and he probably would have given it to him because he was that big-hearted of a person. Murder did not have to happen. We, the family, feel that Tommy Floyd has already received his reduced sentence when he took a plea deal for life in prison with no parole to avoid the death penalty if this case went to trial. Tommy Floyd has the ability to visit and communicate with his family. He has been given life with a bed, 3 meals a day, and medical for the rest of his life. Dwayne was not given that opportunity to make those choices. The family feels the pain of this decision every day and will for the rest of our lives. It would be an injustice for Floyd to have receive another reduced sentence for his charges and undermine the entire judicial system in this case and leave families like ours without justice, as well as the ability to commit these crimes again. The Bible says that we should forgive the wrongdoers against us, but it doesn't say that the person committing the crime should not pay for that crime. We are subject to our governmental authorities and the punishments they impose on us. Floyd needs to serve out the full sentence he agreed to in order to take the death penalty off the table. It breaks our hearts every day that Dwayne was cheated out of this ability to live his life to the fullest. Why should that person that took that away from him be out on the streets and possibly do this again? In closing, we'd like to say thank you again to the parole board for allowing us to express our feelings.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, Mr. Floyd, is there a statement you'd like to make to us before we turn it over to your attorney?
I just appreciate the opportunity to sit here before y'all today, and no matter how the board votes. I appreciate the opportunity, ma'am, and
Rob?
Thank you for the opportunity. Very pleased to.
Podium,
Step
if
up
you
to the
would,
podium
please.
so he can see you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you want to just step up there?
To be perfectly honest, I.
Yeah, you need to go up to the podium. It's all right.
That way he can see you there. There you go.
You all want to see me?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, please, board, thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk on behalf of Tommy. I was Tommy's trial counsel. I promised him back then that I would, should the day have come, that I would be here for him. Quite honestly, didn't think this day would come. 1999, they diagnosed him with a 6-pound tumor in his stomach. They pretty much figured he was gone. But he went to chemotherapy, he survived that, and then 3 years later, he showed up again. And they did a regimen of chemotherapy. He survived that. Now I'm thinking God must have said we're not done. Well, then it came back again later, and it was so aggressive that the medical staff said, we're not going to deploy chemotherapy because it will probably cure will be worse than cancer, and you'll die. So honestly, God, I did not think I was going to be here to talk that, but he survived. Got another plant for him. They had him in hospice, I think, for a couple of years, so they pretty much said you're gone. But he survived, and then he decided that he should give back. So he took these classes, became I don't know what you call certified, where you're the hospice caregiver. And I have the utmost respect for them. I love them all. Passed away. I saw those people coming and grow. And it is as you said, it's a huge call. Does that, and he embraced it and done a great job of doing that. He did a lot of things that they could tell you. He issued all those certificates that he had, and I hope the board has all those submitted to the board. He took every class that was available to him. As Mr. Kerry Myers said, the first thing they would do to the board of grant him role, they would have him intensively examined and evaluated. And I think if you asked Tommy, if they recommended inpatient, he would go. He knew what he had to do to stay sober. He's taking these sobriety classes in 12-step programs. He's not real bright. I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be ugly towards him in any way or demeaning, but it is what it is. And he's got a lot to learn. He learned a lot at his GED while he was incarcerated. I think it speaks volumes that he's speaking on that. And I don't know if y'all noticed in there, he's been an A trustee, an A-class trustee, not for a couple of years, but 15 years. So obviously the warden trusted, and I believe that Mr. Gary said is the right path to go. That should he hit the ground and be free man again, that he be evaluated, go through all those programs, and be intensively evaluated. I like the fact that he said that he would get a sponsor. He's got to have a sponsor. That's just elementary. I think he's got a great support group. I look at all the things that he's done. He survived all that. I really believe God had a plan. This man will be, should he get, whenever he gets out, that day comes, that he will be a hospital. And he'll continue to do what he does. In address what Judge Maradona said, I agree with him. That the treatment is recommended, absolutely got to do it. No doubt about that. We're blessed to have someone as qualified as two district judges here. They know, they've seen it a million times. So I agree with him 100%. I agree with his assessment. So I would suggest to the board that I think he's a great candidate. I think it means a lot. I don't see many wardens coming to that. Not that the people aren't necessarily other reasons why they qualify. I think the fact that he's been in such a trusted position with them that he feels like, hey, this guy put his record for. He became a member of our society. He could fit in and do well, not reoffend. This has been almost 30 years, 29, 30. And I hope that you give him an opportunity. thank you all for listening to me and giving me an opportunity.
So thank you. Okay, we are prepared to vote. Mr. Freeman will be the first.
Okay, it's a tough, one. Real tough case. Appreciate the family from Florida and Philadelphia and around the country for showing up and expressing your feelings. Tommy, you've done a lot in prison. You know, hospice being one of the most thoughtful things that you ever did. The biggest problem I think we're having up here is that, you don't realize you're a drug addict and you don't realize you're an alcoholic. You're all both, and you always will be. That just doesn't go away. So what I'm hoping is, and what I'm going to recommend, is that we send you to Steve Hall, even though you hadn't realized it. And that maybe when you get there, that light will click and they will bring out to you, make you realize you can't control this by yourself. So my vote is going to be to commute your sentence to 56 years with immediate parole eligibility after completing the Steve Hall program.
Mrs. Jackson.
Mr. Floyd, this is a very good case. It truly is. I can't tell you the number of times, even today, that I've gone back and forth on what I think should happen in this case. I have listened to the victims, and they're still suffering as a result of their choices, their decisions, cause irreparable harm to that family. Then I balance that with where you are now, work that you've done over the course of your incarceration to prove yourself. Importantly, the work that you've done to help others. So the institutional record and positive remarks are important. So my vote today, likewise, would be to recommend to the government that your sentence be commuted. I had 60 years with immediate parole.
Mr. Rocha.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Floyd, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Floyd, based on your community service as a hospice volunteer and the positive remarks by Warden Hooper, my vote will be to commute your sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Mr. Marabella.
Thank you. Mr. Floyd, we all on this board have certain things that we're concerned about. This crime was just a horrible crime. And, I agree with both what the warden said and what Mr. Henderson said. Mr. Henderson said that he's never seen you as scared as you are today, even when you die. I believe you're nervous. I believe you're concerned about obviously what's going on. I don't know how would answer the question. It was just a horrible crime that we decided kill this man. I mean, all of those things are horrible. That was a long time ago. I don't think you're that same person today. I am concerned about drugs and alcohol. You say you were a drug addict and you're not a drug addict. That's semantics sometimes. I'll accept that as being nervous today. I think the warden summed it up pretty well when he said, you've taken everything there that they have involving alcohol. First thing you said, which is something I look for when you get out, you're going to get a sponsor. That's important. It's critically important. I think in your head, you know, and I think maybe in your heart, you know, maybe you just weren't able to articulate all of the things you need. But I will tell you this, drugs are not a choice. If you are an alcoholic, or if you think you were an alcoholic, you think you were a drug addict, it's not a choice, that's a disease. And you will have to be vigilant forever. I trust the Louisiana Parole Project. I believe that they will give you, if you are released, the necessary tools that you need, the programs that you need to go. They'll determine whether or not you need inpatient treatment or not. So my vote today would be similar to what Judge Jackson and Mr. Freeman have said, commute to 60 years with immediate parole. So good luck to you.
All right, so Mr. Floyd, you've received 4 favorable votes to make the recommendation that your sentence be commuted. I will concur with that vote. My vote also is to make the recommendation that your sentence be commuted to 60 years with immediate parole eligibility. That's based on the work that you've done.
Ms. Ronaldson, I
60
think
years. Sir?
Mr. Rhodes said 99, so he's not consistent with the rest of the board.
Now, we can make three, the majority for the special conditions. So 3 votes. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Floyd, you understand what happened? You understand the recommendation we'll make?
Yes, ma'am.
That your sentence be commuted to 60 years with immediate parole eligibility. Right? In the meantime, we do recommend that you get with the ward and see if you can get some of that substance abuse treatment that we talked about. Good luck to you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Go on, lady.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I mean, in my opinion, this case was decided on before the hearing ever occurred. And we kind of see that with these things. You know, the parole project, as we've figured out through all these many hearings, is really just a money-making scheme. The concept of it is really great, and there are certainly cases which make me where it's a poster child fit for, if you want to call it that. But the rest of it is just a money-making scheme. You just have to feel bad for the victims. They're literally sitting here alone while you have everyone come up here and praise this guy of how great he is. And basically every single one of them, including his attorney, used the fact that he survived cancer 3 times as a godly sign that he should be let out. And that's just absurd. Maybe it's a sign that the prison system's sick of paying for his medical, so that's why they're letting him out. Pass the bill on to the next tax-paying structure through the parole project. What does it have to? I mean, the guy is suffering. I didn't even know you could still get leprosy. Where's the DA? We asked this. Where is the DA? I know the DA is really busy making sure that our purse snatchers and, possession with intent to distribute pot dealers are staying in prison. We know that they're probably very busy doing that. But where's the DA here? You know that he was sentenced to death. This man was sentenced to die. And then the DA doesn't even show up to his first commutation hearing? What is that saying about the court system, the system in general? You're going to prosecute someone. The judge then gives him the death sentence. It's and you don't show up to his commutation hearing. Like what? It was interesting. I'll put the whole appeal inside of the description, and but it really does blow my mind. What can I say? When you and let me thank Richard for finding this research for me too. Thank you, Richard. That they would give this kid the death penalty and then not even show up for a commutation hearing. Now, he's got a long way from getting set free. The governor needs to sign off on it. Then he has another parole hearing, and you just don't know if the governor is going to do it, especially with the new governor coming into office. It can also take a few years for the governor to even make a decision. Now, there is a wrench to throw into this case, and here it is. The wrench is that he tested as having a low 60 IQ. And if you want to put that into context, Brendan, was it Dassey? Is that how I pronounce it? From maybe Brendan Dassey from Making a Murderer. Remember him? The false confession whole thing? Well, Brendan tested between a 70 and 79. So this man, if you just want to put that into context, is basically in the bottom of the IQ chart. And now in the report, it was interesting, because obviously these people are, I believe, are leaning entirely towards the state. So the person who took the IQ test was ruling in the appeal, like something that he said was that the low IQ is due to his lack of education rather than his inability to learn. And the petitioner went on to say that he was the smartest. What was it? Anything about petitioner's mental condition. He was the smartest 60 IQ person I think I have ever run into. That's the petitioner giving his report on the appeal. Now, there could be some truth to that too, because he did get his GED in prison. And, you might say that maybe a GED wouldn't be possible for someone who has such a low IQ. And it was only because he dropped out of high school in 10th grade. I don't know. But it does throw a wrench into it, because someone with such a low IQ at his young age, high and everything, I mean, maybe he had less culpability in it than, certainly not to get the death penalty, and maybe he's not a dangerous person. Maybe it was his co-defendant that really led everything, and he was just along for the ride. Any confession that he gave in prison could have been coerced. I'm just throwing the wrench in it. It certainly is interesting to think, at least for one thing, that the board didn't seem to take it into account at all, that his IQ is so low. It was like they're just unaware of it. Because, I mean, that might explain how he's acted throughout all this. But his attorney didn't even bring it up. No, instead it was, he survived cancer 3 times, so let him out. I don't know. It's just strange. Makes you shake your head. And I'm not giving the benefit of the doubt that there's information we don't have, because there's really like nothing we have seen in the 300 plus cases. Is there any more depth to these cases that we see? And we just don't have the information, and they know better. We have never seen that. There's not a lot of science that goes into this. They use like risk meters. Well, you on the Tiger score, you have a low risk. They'll say that to like someone who just raped like their daughter from 2 years old to 6 years old. They'll say, "Oh, you have low risk. Well, we should let you out." Great, genius. Probably just demonetize this entire channel, because this entire upload, because it's saying that. But who cares? Where is the DA that they would give a man, they would try someone where the death penalty is applicable, be given the death penalty by a judge, but you don't even show up to his commutation hearing? And then the reasons, like, I don't know. Also, it's just interesting also how they bring up, you have a drug problem, you don't even know it. It's like, he was like, what, how old was he when he got in? I can't, was he 17? Was he 8? Like, is it in here? What's actually also funny is that in his appeal, he was saying that they should have appealed it because of all the drugs that he was on. But they also countered it and said that they didn't see any track marks on his arm. That was something. So they said like he was lying, but it was like he never said he injected anything. That's another side point. He's been locked up for 28 years. I don't think he has any write-ups for intoxication. It's like, he's not necessarily an addict. Like, it's just, why they get stuck on these things, like so obsessively stuck on these topics? Why? It's not always the case. Yes, there are addicts that will always be addicts, and they should always, but it's not a blanket thing for everyone, because when he was young, he was smoking pot every day and doing, the two angles that I bring in, you might argue you can go on this case in both ways. I just think that it was represented incredibly poorly by everyone. And the fact that the victims are still there, I would say 27 years, 28 years. I don't know. If there wasn't victim opposition, I would say I'm happy for the release. I just have a hard time when there's victim opposition. Another thing I hate, his mother got up and said the day that he took his life, it changed. What did he say? It changed his life. It changed my life. It changed their life. It's like, why do you think that you have a right to say it changed your life or their life? It drives me. It really is like, Imagine listening to that. If your loved one was killed by that man and they get up and say, when he did it, it changed his life and my life and the victim's life. What? It's like, to go up and say something like that, you just have to have, it's like having no awareness. It's a really crummy interview, though, I gotta tell you that. And he has like the parole project and the attorney and everyone to prepare him, and he just like flunked it. But then again, it could go back to his IQ thing. So anyways, that's enough of my rant. I'd love to hear your comments below. Do you think that because of his age, because of his IQ, because he's, you can argue, no longer a threat to society, should he have gotten out? You know, he served punishment. He's not a threat. Checked all the boxes. 27 years, 28 years is a long time locked up. Or do you think that no? As long as there's victim opposition, he should stay where he is. So with that, I'll let you go.